Welcome to Black Girl Burnout Podcast. Kelly here, and today we are doing a replay episode. It is the summer, and it is our summer of yes, and I am saying yes to some much needed rest. And I thought I didn't want to leave you all hanging. I want to share with you some episodes. Some you've never heard before, some you've heard maybe in the past, and they're a replay. So for the next couple weeks, as we go through the month, we're going to have a mixture of new episodes that have never been released and some oldies but goodies. Some of my favorite interviews I've had with people in the past. And don't forget, on Fridays, there's always going to be that bonus love note. So stay tuned for this Friday for a bonus love note for y'all. But today's episode is going to be a replay episode of a conversation I had with Michelle Goodloe. Michelle Goodloe is a licensed clinical social worker like me and has a fantastic and very professional background doing all kinds of clinical work, whether it's advocacy for people impacted by domestic violence or child abuse. But lately, her focus has shifted to really helping women navigate burnout, and particularly Black women. She's written incredible books about it. She has workbooks and all kinds of inspirational tips and tools. And Michelle and I talk about a lot of the things that I think are on the minds of Black women, which is how do we balance it all? How do we slow down to thrive? That was the original title of the episode. And I really think the conversation is more true than ever, more relevant than ever. I think we as Black women need to slow down. We need to find ways to create more spaces of peace for ourselves and let go of the guilt while doing it. Michelle and I have a great conversation that covers all the bases. I think Michelle is someone who walks the walk. So if you're looking to follow someone who isn't stuck in hustle culture, like I talked about on Friday's Love Note, but obviously is putting in the work, Michelle is that woman. Let's replay that conversation and see if we can glean new gems from it, or if this is your first time hearing it, enjoy the conversation I have with Michelle Goodloe. Michelle, it is so great to have you on the podcast. I've been a longtime fan of yours, and we've just talked about all the great things that make you who you are, your bio. But I just wanted to say, one, how are you doing today? Welcome to the podcast. Let's start there. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. We've been long fans of each other. Okay. I'm just happy to be in this space. Thank you.
Likewise, it's going to be a mutual admiration society for the next couple of minutes that we spend together. And part of the reason why I have just been such a big fan of yours is, of course, we're both interested in burnout and really passionate about it, and for Black women specifically. But I wanted to hear a little bit more to get us started about, who's Michelle? And then, what's been your journey through burnout and why you now focus on it? Because this is kind of like one of your sole focuses for your practice, for your life, externally, internally. So tell us about that. Who's Michelle? And tell us a little bit about your journey with burnout.
Yeah. First and foremost, I'm a Black woman who is recovering from professional burnout. I am a Midwesterner living in the South, and I'm a mom of a really cool toddler. I mean, he's so funny. He's so hilarious. Has all kinds of jokes and does not want to be referred to as a baby. He's not a little baby. That's new. That's new for mom. I am somebody who absolutely loves reading. I know we had talked about reading a little bit. I'm a huge fan. I prefer the springtime. That's my favorite season. My birthday's also in that season, but I also love Christmas time. That's my favorite holiday. Okay. I'm somebody who's way more than just what she does for a living.
Yes.
It is part of my burnout recovery process to make sure I introduce myself without saying what I do first, because that's not who I am first. But professionally, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm somebody who loves helping people in the therapeutic space, and I have my own private practice called The Essence of Healing LLC. And I'm also helping folks on their restorative self-care journey and burnout recovery journey with G. Michelle Wellness.
Love that. So I want to start with talking about what brings you to this work specifically. Like, I know you said you're recovering your own self from burnout. So maybe a little bit about that story and that journey that then brought you to specializing and focusing on burnout.
Yeah. I actually started my social work journey with helping folks who were surviving domestic violence and intimate partner violence. That's actually how I got interested in social work to begin with. I started my career as a children's counselor. And when you're working with kids, you're also working with parents and caregivers.
Yes.
And I remember working with children exposed to domestic violence and intimate partner violence. This really transformed my ideas of how to help folks because what I like to say in that work is we're in the healthy relationship business. Okay. We're not just focused on the parts of relationships that are violent, abusive, and unhealthy. We also want to talk about healthy relationships. And the more work that I did with individuals, families, schools, groups, I learned that so many of us are working towards having a healthy relationship with ourselves. So that's where I started my self care for myself and for others. Because in the same breath, within the first 6 months of me working full time, I was completely burnt out physically, mentally, spiritually drained. I couldn't tell the difference between work and my personal life. I had very brittle boundaries, if they were existent at all. I constantly thought about work. It was all consuming in my life. And I remember being in session when I was a children's counselor with a little kid. And I remember them looking up at me and going, Miss Michelle, are you okay? Ooh, it, I don't care how many times I talk about that story. I always have to pause and kind of check my own breathing because I remember how I felt in that moment and how that really made me focus on wait a minute, how can I take care of me? Because at that moment, I had a perpetual cold. I'm coughing, but I'm thinking, oh, it's more important for me to show up than to rest and care for myself. So that's how I started with self care. And over the years, especially the last 4 or 5 years, it has transformed into not just talking about self care, but also how do you recover from experiences of burnout, specifically professional burnout. It's truly been a transformation in my work.
Yeah, I think you end up there, right? I really love the journey of one as a fellow social worker. I totally understand that. You go head first into the work and you just, get your cape, you dust it off, you get it all starched and get it pressed and looking great, and then you proceed to try to do all the things, be all the things for all the people, and then you give it a couple minutes, you burn out. I had similar experience with the same first professional job I had, spectacular burnout from that. And we start with talking about, self-care, and which is incredibly important. But along the journey to self-care, we forget that self-care is like the last piece, right? When you've already had a spectacular burnout, right? You don't have the tools to even get there. Or if you do, you haven't regulated yourself. You haven't addressed the mindset shifts that lead you to go to the next job. Because I burned out and I thought I had a great self-care routine. I had a massage therapist. I met with my girls and my mind, once a week, and I still burned out. And I think that journey of getting to what's underneath that makes us deny ourselves self-care is important. And understanding that there are people who are in the process of major recovery work where self-care is the end goal, but it's not something they're able to start with right away.
Yeah. That's very real.
It's so real. And I just feel like that feels like that natural progression feels very relatable to me, because I feel like, and I think for a lot of people listening, they're like, yeah, that's what I thought. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a good self-care routine going. And yet there's some lingering discomfort. I'm still experiencing anxiety, or I still have a lot of cynicism. And so to that point, how do you then, now that you had this, I'm focusing on this area as a way to get to self-care, because you're still talking about that, how do you then define burnout, and what are some of the symptoms for folks to be checking for?
Yeah. My kind of definitions of burnout have to do with burnout is this long-term experience of exhaustion, disconnection, and feeling ineffective.
Hmm.
It, I like to say when you're showing up burnt out, you're the opposite of your well rested self in some way, shape, or form. And time has a lot to do with it. In a lot of my workshops I do with groups, I really emphasize that part because typically we're not showing up our first day of a job, the next day we're burnt out, right?
Right. Right.
Maybe anxious, tired, nervous, but burnout really has to do with time that over a period of time, repeatedly feeling exhausted and disconnected and not as effective, that happens over and over again and leaves us in this place of feeling really burnt out.
I love that. The way you said burnout is connected to time, because I think that's really important for people to understand. It's not one instance that leads someone to burnout, it is many instances. And, the way we've talked about this before, it is to me these little moments of self betrayal that you bring in, this self violation. It's like where your boundaries weren't strong, or you worked a little later than you thought you were this day, and then a little later the next day. It's a cumulative experience. It's not one event, it's so many events that pile up on each other. I just wanted to call it for our audience. The second thing to call that you said that was really powerful is that burnout is the opposite of your well-rested self. I
Mhm.
think that that's really great. When you think about your most perfect day or what it would look like to have no stress in your life, and you have this image, and if you haven't, please go journal that, because that's important. The opposite of that is probably 9 to 10 times, maybe close to what we're feeling today or on a stressful day, right? We're like, the sky is falling. I feel none of these elements in my life. And I think those are two really key ways of thinking about burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something I like to talk about too, in addition to that well rested version, is also like your favorite version of yourself,
Yes.
right? Those can be one and the same if they're not
Yes.
different. But I think it's so helpful to think about that. I love adding self compassion in this conversation as well, because a lot of folks are experiencing burnout because, like you were kind of saying, that the word that came up for me was like a self injury or self
Yes.
sabotage that can lead to burnout. But so many people are taking care of themselves, but they're experiencing capitalism fatigue,
Yeah. Yes.
right? Where it's not, yourself that's causing it, but the fatigue of our economic system is also causing folks to burn out. I think that's so important to mention, especially for our audience here, our people.
Absolutely. Burnout to me has always been on two tiers. It is both systemic and individual. So
Hmm.
there are systemic pressures that cause burnout, and then there's individual. So on the individual level is those self-betrayal moments, those moments of like pushing yourself past the point of exhaustion, the breaking boundaries, the having your identity so linked into who you are that you are unable to navigate your life in a joyful way. There's that bucket. But I think what often happens, frustratingly for me, is that we forget that there's capitalism fatigue, but there's systemic things. The way that we work is not set up for health, for, emotional safety, all those things. It's just not set up for that. And so one feeds the other. As your workplace betrays you, you then learn the tools of betraying yourself, right? As systems betray you, you learn the habit of betrayal is just the norm. And I think it's really beautiful that you are bringing that into the conversation. I forget, it's been a while since I've done direct practice. And I always, every time I meet with like my therapist or another therapist, I'm like, oh, it's the therapist voice. It's that calming energy that you do. I used to do it too. And sometimes when I podcast, I probably tap into it because it's like, I feel so calm and zen. My
Yes.
nervous system is regulated. I'm in the presence of a therapist. Like you could just tell. So kudos to you.
Sweet. I love hearing that. That
You've
means
got that
something's
going
working.
on.
Thank
Yes,
you.
it's working. It is very much working. And that we need that. We need that level of calm and zen as we talk about being a Black woman in the world today and what that means in the context of burnout. Like what makes it more of a risk factor? What does it mean to be a Black woman, and how does burnout impact us uniquely?
Hmm. I strongly look at that word. When we talk about strong Black womanhood, I always like to talk about how strong Black womanhood is how we've been surviving.
Yes.
And some of the risks, like history I've been looking at when it comes to strong Black womanhood, it came out of such a well-intentioned place,
Yeah.
right? Like, look at us. We're doing the things. We're gracious. We're strong. We're achieving. We're helpful. And because of this wonderful thing called life and all the isms,
Mm-hmm.
strong Black womanhood has become harmful, kind of striving for it in that sense. And so a lot of Black women try their best to show up strong and are burning out left and right because strong has all of a sudden become more than human.
Yeah.
We're showing up as literal superwomen in our personal, professional lives, and we're exhausted from all of this pressure from this role.
So much pressure. And I think you've captured it. You know, people, the way it's used today is meant to be a good thing. It's like, we're going to take a negative and make it a positive. Look how resilient we are. Look how we can do all the things. But like you've said, we've in some ways in a unhealthy way bought into the worst definition of strong Black womanhood, which is that we should tolerate way beyond what anyone else should have to. That for us, that word strong is not necessarily about health or about taking, just being normal and achieving, maybe a high achiever. It's more like never complain, never question, have no boundaries on the other side, but then don't share any parts of yourself. Deprive yourself of intimacy because no one's going to get to know you because you're good all the time. I'm 100% well, while I'm letting people step on me. Or we've changed it to ways that we tolerate things that are not healthy, that make us physically ill, right? And then make us more likely to burn out. Do you see that a lot when you're working with Black women? What are the kinds of things you see in session that makes you think, oh, this is a commonality. This is what Black women are going through?
Yeah, I see so much of it. How much time do we have?
Right.
Some of the things I see are just the incredible shame and guilt that show up for Black women when trying to take care.
Yeah.
Or even just thinking about it, that those feelings of shame and guilt just take up so much space. Like, oh, I'm wrong, or I'm bad, or I'm doing something wrong, doing something bad if I decide to take a break, if I decide to set that boundary, if I say no to that request. So definitely the shame and guilt. And really how historically and generationally so many Black women have been taught to be strong. This is what I saw my mother do, my auntie do, my grandmother do. And I'm just doing what I know. I don't really know a life outside of being a strong Black woman, being anything else. And again, this is part what's wrong. I don't want to say what's wrong, but why we have issues with this stigma is because there's very limited identities for Black women.
Yeah.
We're either strong or we're not. Right? We're either sapphires or we're not. We're mammies or we're not. And it's like, whoa, is there an identity of Black womanhood that includes rest and ease and maybe not so strong all the time? I'm learning that we're trying to create this other identity outside of just being strong. And we're learning that's a tough one. It's tough to do that.
It's very tough. And I really appreciate you bringing out the fact that there's such a limited range of prescribed identities for Black women. Because I think that's the part of it. It's like what you inherit from outside of yourself, of how people see Black women. And because they're so limited, you're like, okay, I don't want to be like the vixen or the sapphire, or I don't want to be the mammy. Like those have such inherently negative, stereotypes around them and stigma around them. Okay, strong Black woman though. That's an invincible woman. Like there's such a need to want to take that. And I think that's so powerful because so much of what I believe and what I talk about is that it's actually none of those and you get to create your own. That's actual health, is being able to say, I'm not any of these things. I'm Kelly. And like you just beautifully introduced yourself, right? Your favorite holiday is this. You love the springtime. You're the mother of a toddler. Like I get to craft my identity into what I want it to be. And that it feels like talking to you, does that feel like some of the first steps that you help folks with? Is that where you help people start if they were experiencing burnout?
Absolutely. Specifically for Black women, I'd like to identify some of the causes first.
Mhm.
Because I notice, and I have to like roll my shoulders back when I talk about this, because I've noticed a lot of us have not had strong Black womanhood unpacked before.
Right.
And just receiving some safety and validation around, we're just going to take a look at this, y'all. Hold on. Let's create some safety around just looking at this type of womanhood. And then let's see what we want to do to alter it. Because I've also noticed in having the pleasure of working with Black women, there are some Black women who feel really, again, no pun intended, strongly about strong
Yeah.
Black womanhood, see a lot of positives in it. So by no means are we demonizing this term. We're just saying you have choices.
Yes.
Here are your options. That's I feel like that's part of my work is I want to make sure Black women know you have plenty of options. You can pick and choose and craft, just as you said, Kelly, your identity around being a Black woman. It doesn't have to fall into one particular category.
Yeah, and you can reclaim strong Black woman. I think that's a part of it. It's like it's not it's my rejection is other people's definitions of strong Black woman that you may have taken for yourself. I
Mhm.
still consider myself a strong Black woman. But if you ask me what that means, it means very different than who I was in my 20s when I was wearing that as a cape and I was violating my boundaries and I was dealing with people who didn't honor me and I was
Mm,
never vulnerable and never connected to people. I was scared in a place of scared and defensiveness to
yeah.
in order to be all things to everyone. It's that I've redefined it to include what you said, which is rest, which is healing, which is intimacy, which is vulnerability, which is a measure of softness. I'm not strong Black woman is what we all want to be. It's just unpacking what the world has told you, taking away and owning what are
Mhm.
you borrowing from others and what is organically you to be that strong Black woman. I think that's so beautiful that that's the way you talk about it because people are very attached to that phrase
Yeah. Yeah.
and want to own it. And I'm just like, absolutely, but actually own it. So
Mhm.
you actually get to define it.
That's right. That's right.
And I want everybody to have that experience. That we're not saying you can't be a strong Black woman. We're just saying don't be don't be the version someone tells you to
Yeah.
be. You get to pick and choose who you want to be. And I think that is a great place to start. So, my last thing I want to talk about before we move into joy and some boundary discussion is what would you tell someone who is, experiencing symptoms of burnout, is a Black woman? Like, what kind of encouragement would you give them to say, try to find someone like Michelle? Try to find somebody, who can help you unpack that. What words of encouragement would you give folks?
Yeah. The first thing I want to acknowledge is I know right now it may not feel safe enough to slow down, but it's so important to put slowing down in your purview because you're reaching that place where your body is going to do it for you.
Yeah.
I want you to try your absolute best to find a way to slow down. What I like to say in session with folks is if you're at a 10, how can we come to a 9?
Yeah.
What would just be the first step for you in slowing down? That looks different for everybody. But what does that look like for you? A lot of us, and this is why it's important to really look at this from the perspective of us as Black women. Sometimes when you're going full speed, it's terrifying to suddenly hit the brakes. So,
Mhm.
what can you do to just ease off the brakes? Is there one thing you can take off your to-do list? And when I say take off, listen, I know y'all my people. Can you plan to do it later? Can
Right.
you reschedule it? Come on, somebody. Can you ask for help with it so you don't have to do the whole
Mhm.
thing? Is there any way you can ease off the accelerator? Right? Is there one boundary you can put in place for yourself this week? Do you want to protect your time? Maybe your energy, maybe your capacity, right? Maybe your peace of mind. What's one thing you can do to start? Because to me, burnout recovery and restorative self care, it looks like learning the things that are contributing to our burnout, and then replacing them with things that get us closer to the well-rested version of ourselves. And I always make this motion of my hands going back and forth because it's a back and forth. Again, it's
Yes.
scary to suddenly stop for some folks. Go cold turkey. But
Right.
if you can go back and forth and just build upon that practice, you get closer and closer to that recovery. And that's literally why I'm here to help guide us through it.
Yes, absolutely. Everything you just said, people take notes. That is correct. That is the right way. And it has to be that way.
Mhm.
Go cold turkey, you don't sustain that. But you do sustain, you said that little dance, that back and
Mhm.
forth, that going, that give a little, take a little.
Yeah.
That is sustainable. What's not is saying, I'm quitting my job and forget everybody, don't ask me another question, or never doing anything. Continue to go full force until your body quits for you. It is that delicate dance, and it doesn't have to be going from a 10 to a 1. It can be a 10 to a 9,
There you go.
and then a 9 to an 8.
Yeah.
But the most important part is sometimes you need a guide for that.
Mhm.
And don't let fear, ego, pride, buying into this trope, don't let that deprive you of getting that if you need it.
Amen.
And so I want to close out as I always do. We got an amen from the chorus, so it's time to move on. That means I can't get any better than this conversation, this segment. Let's be real. One of the biggest sources of burnout for Black women is money. Whether it's debt, divorce, home buying, investing, or just trying to make it to the next paycheck, financial stress is real and it's exhausting. But here's something that can help. The Savvy Ladies Helpline. It's free. Yes, really free. You get 55 minutes with a certified financial expert, no strings, no judgment, just real answers to your real money questions. Want to build wealth, prep for retirement, figure out how to invest or navigate money after a breakup? They've got you. Savvy Ladies is on a mission to make financial education accessible to all women, and the helpline is a game changer. So if money is stealing your peace, I invite you to take one powerful step toward financial freedom. Visit savvyladies.org and book your free session today. You don't have to struggle alone. You can opt out of burnout and into clarity, confidence, and peace with your money. So when we talk about constipation, bloating, heaviness, sluggishness, these aren't just random symptoms. They're actually your gut's way of telling you something's off. Look, I'm going to be real with you. As a podcaster and a consultant and a writer, I'm always on the go. And I have struggled for years to maintain my energy, to really keep myself kind of together with bloating around my cycle, all the things you can think of. This is where Oxy Powder from Global Healing came in. Oxy Powder isn't just another cleanse or quick fix. It's a targeted oxygen-based formula that gently and safely breaks down and flushes out waste and toxins that build up in your gut over time. I take it at night, and by the morning, I'm feeling lighter and clearer, just better. Oxy Powder is easy to take, and because of that, it's become a staple in my routine. And I'm not the only one. A consumer study showed incredible results. 95% said that it relieved constipation, 87% said it felt relief from bloating, and a massive 95% said they would use it again, with 93% recommending it to a friend. If you're tired of feeling weighed down, trust me on this. Head over to globalhealing.com/heal and try Oxy Powder for 20% off. You'll thank me later. That's globalhealing.com/heal. This conversation has flown by. They all fly by, but it's always, I love doing this podcast. I cannot say enough. It is so joyful for me, which is what we're going to close out on, just because I have the best conversations with the most incredible Black women. And every time I get something a little different. So I wrote back, burnout, starting with burnout and that dance. I'm going to be like swaying, thinking about, okay, what do I got to take off my to-do list?
Yes.
Let me sway.
Yes. That's it.
That's it. I love that.
Yeah.
And want to now talk about joy. I want to first talk about, I feel like before we get to joy, which I think is a part of it, it's all about boundary work. So I want to spend a little bit of time asking you, how do you recommend Black women kind of set up and maintain some healthy boundaries, especially given the fact that people do not understand the unique stressors, particularly in the workplace and other places, even in your family, they may not understand the unique stressors that you're facing as a Black
Mhm.
woman. How do you maintain and establish those boundaries then?
Yeah. One definition I have for boundaries are the limits and expectations that we set in our relationships with others and
Yes.
within our relationship with ourselves. Our
Yes.
boundaries protect us, right? And so I think there's a misconception about boundaries that boundaries have to do with the other people or the other persons in your life. Boundaries really have everything to do with you. When you understand and affirm your own boundaries, you are teaching people how to have a healthy relationship with you. And not to sound threatening, but you're also sharing with them what happens if they don't,
Yep.
right? So, one boundary I have several. One boundary I have that's so important to me are boundaries around my time. Time is so precious to me. It's so important. I have all kinds of systems in place to help me affirm those boundaries. But a question I used to get really early in my career very often was, Michelle, are you sure you're not available at this time? I mean, I don't see it on your schedule, but you sure you're not available in the evenings, on the weekend? Oh my gosh, all the time. And I used to get so offended by this. I used to take it really personally. What? They don't understand what's going on, right? So much frustration. I have a lot more peace with this in this day and age because they are welcome to ask me that question. Sure. Even though I have shared with them what my time is, go ahead. What's affirming to me is my answer is not going to change no matter how many times you ask me. And I love a good compliment sandwich, a good yes, no, yes way of setting boundaries, starting with that top bun of affirming or recognizing what's been asked. That middle bun, I like to say the protein, right, of the sandwich is actually stating that really clear boundary. And then the bottom bun that keeps everything together is the action item. So when folks ask me that question, I go, hey, thanks for your request. No, I am still not available at that time. I actually am available at this time. Does that work for you? And if that doesn't
Yes.
work, we move forward. I've had to again, I got to move my shoulders a little bit. We have to just roll with it because your boundaries have everything to do with you. And I've learned if I violate my boundaries, that's going to interrupt my healthy relationship with myself.
Yes.
You know, what can I do to take care of myself here? What was my boundary? What am I protecting? Ooh, that's going to be in violation if I don't do this, if I don't say no to that, if I don't decline this, if I don't move that around, you know? So boundaries have everything to do with you and your relationship with yourself.
100%. And
Yeah.
it when you don't respect your boundaries, you are teaching people. When you respect and don't, you teach people how to respect or disrespect you. Like
Yeah.
it really, they just learn it in small ways, like disrespect your time. If you say, oh, even though I told you my availability, you still pitched a time outside of that. And I said, yes, you've now taught somebody. Well, that's not,
Yeah.
she doesn't really mean it. I
Yeah.
can now continue to press and ask for another Saturday engagement, even though weekends are off limits.
Right.
So I think that is wonderful. I think setting preferences, so many times people are afraid to say no because they don't understand the compliment sandwich or they don't set a preference ahead of time, right? To say, this is who I am. I don't work well in the
Mhm.
evenings. I don't work on afternoons and evenings. You gave a great example because sometimes people still don't respect it and they still
Mhm.
ask a question. But
Mhm.
start out that way. So many people would never have even said language of a preference and then are constantly frustrated when people step all over a boundary. Was it Nidra Tawweb who said that a boundary is not something that isn't expressed out loud? It's like it's not a silent communication that people
Mhm.
need to know.
Yeah.
They can't read your mind. So stating that preference and then that compliment, the yes, no, yes sandwich. I love that. I think that's gonna be so
Mhm.
helpful for folks.
Yes, use it all the time, and it takes practice. And I want to
Yes.
acknowledge that some of us are experiencing burnout because I want to emphasize what you said, Kelly, because we don't know what our preferences are. We're not aware of our needs. We have no idea what our capacity is. We're just doing, 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 maybe because we're pleasing others, maybe because that's how we've survived, right? You can have your own answer for it. Part of what I think is recovering from burnout, especially for Black women, is getting to know yourself.
Yes. So
Mhm.
crucially important. And that's the first step. And boundaries to me and joy are linked. I don't see them as separate conversations. I see them as the same because the more boundaries I've set, the more joyful I've become. I don't know about for
Mm,
you, but I
yeah.
have more joy because I say no and I stand up in a room and own myself and own what my limitations are. And I set them out there so I don't even have to say no sometimes.
Mhm.
But the joy, I'm like, oh, okay, this feels good. So I love the conversation we're having. I love it that it's in the joy segment because that is the way forward. I want to close with you, Michelle. What brings you joy? I just want to know generally what brings you joy.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so many things. I know we've talked about reading. I have
Yes.
re-engaged my love of reading. If I will be honest with you, grad school burnt me out from reading for a while,
Oh,
had to recover. Okay, was literally scared of a textbook. Come on, somebody.
yeah.
But now, in this stage of my life, I'm able to really start reading specifically fiction again. I used to,
hmm
then there was a period of time I was only reading like personal development books or professional
Yeah.
development books. Listen, we are now diving into the fantasy. I just finished The Iron Flame. I don't know if you've heard of this
Okay.
book. Oh my God,
No.
it's so good, Kelly. It,
Okay.
flew through it. Okay, I'm getting
Okay.
into it. I like to say if you like a little Harry Potter situation, you might like this. Okay, it's a little bit more adult, but okay. But I
Okay.
love reading and literally like getting my library card, going to the library when I have opportunities to be alone. I like to go and read, snuggle and read. I also like trying out new recipes. That's been
Okay.
something that's been bringing me a lot of joy. I'm not a chef, not a cook by any means, but I like trying some new things and especially teaching my son different foods and how to enjoy different foods that are different colors. That's been awesome. Also, just connecting with my loved ones. It's been so much fun, especially this past season, whether it's my good girlfriends, my family members, just spending quality time with people I love. We'll literally put our phones down. We're engaged with each other. We got a cute charcuterie board. Okay, and we're having
Yes.
fun. Yes. It's really been the most meaningful things have been bringing me so much joy. So much joy.
I love that. Follow up question I ask everyone: how do you protect it? How do you protect the things that bring you joy? How do you protect your joy?
Yeah. Listen, we don't mean to be broken records here, but boundaries.
Yes.
Boundaries. I protect my joy with my boundaries. If there's something coming up in my work and it's taking extra time and space, I'm like, okay, how can I schedule within my work hours to take care of that? Because I have to protect my time that I'm spending with my son, or the time I'm spending with my husband, or the time I'm spending with myself.
Yes.
It's a consistent reminder that when I establish a boundary, when I reaffirm a boundary, I'm protecting my joy and the things that are important to me.
And it's so important to make that connection, right? It's knowing what you love, making time for it. The boundary facilitates that.
Yeah.
It's what keeps you able to be joyful. And so, thank you for sharing that. Michelle, how can we connect with you with all
Yeah.
this great information? I know people are going to want more. You've
Yeah.
got books behind you. You've got
Mhm.
to tell us all the things. How do we connect with you?
Yes. On all the social media platforms, I'm at the G Michelle with two L's. I absolutely love this work that is helping folks get connected to their well rested versions of themselves. I like to help folks through journaling, guided journaling. I have 3 journals available on Amazon.com that you're welcome to be connected to: Self Explore, Self Restore, the Self Care Investment, and specifically for Black women, I Own My Magic. And again, all of those are available on Amazon.com. You're also welcome to explore my website where I have tons of goodies, digital goodies, for you to help with your burnout recovery. And I also love working with groups of people, helping them with workshops and talking about burnout recovery. We talk about assertive boundary setting, protective time management, resourceful task delegation. I mean, you name it, we're building those skills. I'll keep y'all posted for the next time that I do specifically my program for Black women called The Strength in Softness. Continue to stay connected on gmichelle.com and on socials for the next time I give that offering.
Awesome. We're going to have all of that in the show notes. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us and having this incredible conversation. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, Kelly. Thank you.
So that's it for this episode of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Michelle is such a pleasure to talk to. Don't forget, if you are enjoying what you are listening to or visually seeing, if you're on YouTube, share it with people who you think could use this on their journey. Black women, we need all the help we can get right now and all the encouragement and inspiration. And I hope this podcast is an offering of just that for you. I also want you to follow me along on Substack, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. It's all at Black Girl Burnout. Same name, but different experiences on different platforms. I'm particularly falling in love with Substack as of late and having a lot of great nuanced and deep conversations with you because a lot of you all are writing great comments. It's just a vibe over there, y'all. It's free to join. There is a pay tier if you want to patron the work, but it is free and it is a time. All right, I think that's it for now. I will do one last plug. If you haven't given a review yet, particularly on Apple, we're this close to getting 600 reviews. We're like 6 away. If you use Apple, go ahead and just drop the 5 stars. You don't even have to write a comment. But if you do, I want you to know that I read them all and I love them all. And you all are the best. That's all I can say. Until the next episode, Friday's Love Note, take care of yourself, take care of each other, rest well, and continue having your summer of yes.